is a very good evening and a warm welcome to your program, Economic Forum, with me, Jerome Peresu. It is a platform, of course, where we discuss economic-related matters, whether it be farming, whether it be mining or tourism. We discuss right here on this platform. Now, the launch of the Castor bean project in Zimbabwe has turned out to be a success story, as thousands of women are earning foreign currency from the production of the oil-rich and drought-resistant crop. Currently, there are more than 6,000 farmers in Zimbabwe and across Africa producing castor bean for castor oil. Now, it is on this background that we've invited Israel Kembo, agricultural expert, and we are talking farming today. Welcome to Economic Forum, Israel.
Thank you.
Israel, an interesting subject indeed, farming. We know this country needs it. We need the foreign currency. We need good farming skills, all that and more. What is castor bean?
Castor bean is a perennial crop, and this crop is of diverse industrial use. And as you know, the world revolves on oil, and it's one of the key component products to get oil to move the world.
Perhaps run us through the processes. I mean, it's one thing to explain what it is. It's another to grow it. How is it grown?
Growing of castor bean is a very basic crop. It's not intense. It can be done from the peasant farmers to commercial farmers. It's very easy to grow. It can adapt to any temperatures. It also has its unique structures in the resistance to drought, resistance to diseases. So the agricultural practices for castor bean is very basic. The basic growing of castor bean. The variety that we are using in Zimbabwe, it has up to 25,000 plant population, and it can yield an average of 1 kg per year. It means it can easily harvest up to 25,000 kgs, which is 25 tons. And as it is a 120-day cycle crop, it means you'll be continuously harvesting to up to a peak period of 5 years. The harvesting castor in every 120-day cycle cropping harvesting. So castor itself, it serves a very huge purpose to farmers. It's a crop which does well to curb carbon gases. Those greenhouse gases, it's also an answer to the climate change.
But perhaps before we get to Israel, let's delve deeper into this thing in terms of the castor bean itself. Let's talk of the inputs that a farmer should consider. Let's talk of the type of regions it can be grown in.
It does well here in Zimbabwe for almost like the 99% of our areas in Zimbabwe. Castor bean does well, serving those cod areas, our little zone in Nyanga, and then the Wonde Valley area. Those areas alone, that's where castor bean cannot thrive. But the rest, be it in Gokwe Mzarabani, be it in Mazoe, or be it in Bite Bridge, any other area in Zimbabwe, the castor plant thrive very well, and it also does well even in those hot regions. So our Matabeleland provinces, that's the crop to grow, and you've noted that even our famous Command Agriculture project is not in those regions because they doesn't do well with crops. They do well in animal husbandry. But with castor beans, you can grow it anywhere in Zimbabwe, and it gives you maximum yields. And also, it takes any soil type. Be it you've got heavy soils, be it you've got sandy, loamy soils, the pH scale becomes up to from 3.2 to up to 7.58. You can do your castor whether you're on the acidic level, you're on the alkaline, or you're on the neutral soil zones. Everywhere you can do castor bean without any problem. The soil types affects the density of the crop. There are things that can be done to say on sandy loamy or less drained soils. You can put cattle manure, pig manure to enhance your soils. By so doing, you are giving maximum feed to castor plant. As you have, in most of rural areas, we have seen this plant even germinating at the backyard of crows and even pigsties. So it does well even where there is intense heat in terms of manure. It does well where there is even less moist elements. All you need is to make sure your plant germinated rightly and give it enough feed in terms of the castor blend. Castor bean is a nitrogenous crop. Okay. It doesn't take like our ammonia nitrates or our urea. Those fertilizers affects in the growing of castor bean because it produces its own. So you need to have a castor blend which is high in magnesia and phosphorus. Thereafter you're good to go. You can only maybe use compost and manures to enhance it, but no any other additional fertilizers. You can still do foliars, but not the nitrogen foliars because it generates its own nitrogen. So it's a very basic crop which needs just basal applications, and thereafter you're good to go.
We now take a short break, but join us when we return. Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. And if you have just joined us, you are watching Economic Forum in the second segment. Now, just before the break, we were talking about castor bean, how it's grown, the inputs that are required to grow it, and a lot more surrounding that, the regions, and a lot more. To help us unravel the issues behind castor bean production, we have Israel to run us through the paces. Now, Israel, what is the benefits of castor bean?
The benefits of castor bean is infinity. It brings a lot of opportunities, both from the primary production to the intents of the processing, packaging, or the economics elements to do with the downstream industry, and so as to the value addition channels. The castor itself, as a plant, from its roots, the stem, the leaves, and the bean, all are raw materials for industrial growth. Okay. So as it creates a raw material for processing, it means there is industry. It means there is a scope of economics. So the benefits of castor cut across several industries, be it your pharmaceuticals. You get a castor oil for pharmaceutical production in terms of every product in the pharmaceutical chain, be it a bandage cloth, be it a pill, there is castor oil to those things. So the processing of a lot of products within the pharmaceutical chain requires castor oil as a raw material. We also have for industrial use, our engine oils, our paints, all the lubricants, you name it, the grease, aviation biojet oil, biojet fuel, all these are byproducts of castor bean. So castor bean itself, under a petrochemical engineering value chain matrix, it produces about 1,667 products. Of these products are in high demand in the world. They are being used each and every day's life. They are very much in short supply in most cases. You know, hospitals are struggling because they don't have medicines, they don't have proper way to use. All these are byproducts from one crop called castor. If you look at it, say for example, I'll mention a country, India, is very famous in terms of medicinal and surgery issues to do with health benefits. There are major resources there it's not the educated doctors. It is one crop they grow intensively, which is castor beans plant. So,
but maybe before you explain that, for the benefit of myself and of course the viewers, now how different is it from your sunflower, your groundnut oil? What is the differentiation there?
Castor bean itself, it produces industrial oil, which can only is a non-edible oil in its raw form, can only become edible at 5th grade processing. That's where you can get your castor oil for that is being given to miners and other uses for hairdo and so forth. This is your cosmetics. It's on the 5th grade processing. The first grades castor oils are not edible. They are poisonous. They have the resin, which can kill anyone if you consume only 5 meals of it. So the difference between these oils from sunflower, groundnut, even maize produces oil as well. The difference is in viscosity and durability. Okay. The viscosity of castor oil is the top, is the number one. It can only be followed with the olive oil. Okay. And for industrial use, castor oil has got dense oil, which is heavy. You can process it to anything you want. You can process it to rubber. You can process it to even fabric. So the difference between these, let's simplify it as castor is more non-edible and of industrial use, and castor and groundnut and sunflower, they are edible and more of domestic use.
You get me worried when you talk about the poisonous factor of resin as one of the most toxic substances known to this particular crop. Therefore, what safety precautions can one consider? Because obviously this is one crop that has got its positive benefits, and clearly there's this negative side of it. How cautious can one be when they're handling or dealing with this particular crop?
On the primary production, say in terms of the farmer in the field, it's harmless. It can only get harmful if you consume 5 and chew them. If you just swallow a grain of castor, there's no harm. Actually, it's a health benefit. Okay. But if you then chew, we are cracking the resin component within the inside of the inner coat of the castor skin. That becomes a challenge. So the only way to protect against that is don't just buy castor oils from unauthorized traders. There are people who are now doing backyard castor bean processing. They are selling even in the streets of Harare now. People are now selling castor for hairdo, and they are plating it as black Jamaican oil. All those are fake oils, and in the long run, it will give a very intense side effect.
We discuss this after this break. Join us when we return. A very warm welcome back to your program, Economic Forum, and we are discussing farming, and it is agriculture. Israel, now just before the break we were talking about the health factors, the health issues. You really got me concerned there where you said that if you take a certain amount, it's harmless. But how much is safe? Because we're talking of rural folk here. We're talking of your farmers that go into the so-called munda, you know, with the families, and they take care of the fields in that way.
Since time immemorial, castor bean is rooted its foundations in Zimbabwe. Even you go to countries like China, their varieties are rooted to Zimbabwe. It means we used to have this plant. And naturally, even our miners, no matter he or she is crawling, they don't touch But in the event that an accident happened, it mustn't exceed 5 mils of the resting component in your body.
What then happens?
If it exceeds 5, it choke you to death within minutes. There's no remedy to that. But lesser amount, for example, the scientists in India are curing cancer using 2 milligrams of castor resin as a medication to be administered to a cancer patient, and the cancer will disappear. So it can only be harmful if it's consumed to more than 5 mils, which then becomes its excess in a human body. But anything lesser doesn't harm.
Well, I can go on Israel to actually just support you there. I know for a fact that tobacco is dangerous, and tobacco is the second highest foreign currency earner in this country. I know that the same setup is out there in the rural areas, but we don't hear of any children dying of that. But however, the crop that you're talking about, which is your castor bean, I know has turned out to be a game changer for a lot of the women, as they're now earning a lot of foreign currency. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit more on how they've benefited?
Castor bean contracts are being done for castor oil exports, and then it's a major earner in the global landscape, with over 7 trillion exchanging hands in castor trade, both in the raw and processed crude castor to the finished products. So if we are exporting crude castor oil to international markets, it means that's the same has to come back to the farmer who have done the primary production. So the export receipts are in foreign currency, and the farmers are deemed to benefit also in foreign currency. We know there's this SI 142 and SI 33, but the central bank have its own exemptions in agricultural export commodities, as well as they have a certain percentage which they withhold to that effect. But as long as the production is for export, the farmer has to be paid in foreign currency, and that's what is happening in Zimbabwe.
In Zimbabwe, I know that diesel demand is currently averaging about 3 million liters per day in terms of the cost itself. Now, how much can this product reduce the cost incurred? Should farmers should the farmers embrace this particular crop?
Indeed, Zimbabwe, if we do well in castor bean farming, we will reduce our importation bills to more than 60%, because most of the products that we are importing, they are a byproduct of castor bean plant. So if we process our own biodiesel for Zimbabwe, if we process for our own engine oils, if we process for our own pharmaceutical medicinal, it means we no longer going to be importing products from outside. Therefore, it has got a positive impact and less headache even to the government of the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. So that issue, for example, castor crude at world market is fetching almost up to between $7 to $12 depending on the market we are tapping on. And to produce 1 kg or 1 liter of castor oil, you need at least 2 kgs of castor beans. So the primary production basis for intense production of castor bean will then be equated to the number of kgs that you then be exporting as castor oil. And you can choose even to withhold a certain percentage for local market, but virtually if you export castor crude, say at $8 per kilogram, it's a positive, it's a plus, and the demand is in excess of tens of millions.
I actually agree with you, Israel. It's for a fact this is what the country needs. it's definitely what they need. But from finding out the benefits, and everything that's got benefits surely has its challenges. We cannot run away from that. It cannot be 100% beneficial without any shortfalls. I know it's got shortfalls, and this is what I want you to run me through. What are the challenges that have been faced in the production of castor bean?
The risk which is there is no proper law. You know it very well that macadamia has got its own statutory instrument. You know it very well that tobacco has got its own laws. But with castor bean, the big brother is failing to come up to speed. Yet it is the benefit for them to then say if they can capacitate their farmers at grassroots level, they will be in a position as a paymaster now to come back and take taxes to the same farmers. And these farmers, this crop, it have proved beyond unreasonable doubt that you can earn foreign currency. And most of these farmers that has been pioneers to this castor game have been paid their foreign currency. There's no any other place where you had any farmer complaining for non-payments. But the government doesn't want to put proper legislative issues or legislative framework to govern. We have to have policies within, say, the Ministry of Agriculture. We have to have a framework for statutory instrument or even an act of parliament, because this industry is not just a joke. We are talking of billions.
Of course.
And then if you are on a billion-dollar industry and there's no laws to it, it means it then becomes a game of cats and mice. That's the challenge.
Your last words, just to sum it up, to those that actually want to be part of the crop production of castor bean.
As you have seen that the global change even for major foreign currency crops is now a challenge in terms of health issues, be it tobacco, for example. Farmers should now think to have alternative crops which are of the same benefit or even beyond. So growing crops for export is the best bet for our economic challenges. Growing crops that have cash flow of value to them is the best bet for the farmers. Zimbabwe, we can make it. Zimbabwe can do it. Let's grow castor beans.
And that was Israel Campbell talking to us about castor production, an expert in castor production. It was a pleasure having you from myself, Jerome Perez, and of course the entire production team. Have yourselves a good night.